On today's show, we're going to take a look at the 8 most popular brands here in the United States, and we're going to go through their lineups, and we're going to have to remove one vehicle from their lineup because there's always one vehicle that you look at, might be your favorite brand, whether it be Chevrolet, Ford, whoever, that you always, it's a head scratcher. You're like, I don't understand what they're thinking with this vehicle, and sales might reflect that. And in some cases, my opinions might reflect that. So just remember, where I'm going through this list, these are my opinions of where I think these companies could get rid of a vehicle and probably never even notice it. So you're going to play along at home. And in the comments below, I'm going to want your opinions on this. So as we play along, I will categorize each one of these. So if you want to jump to your favorite brand, see which one I'm talking about, and give me your opinions, you'll be able to do that here. So you know what to do. Let's get into vehicle 1, the Ford brand. So we're looking at the Ford brand, and I want to pull this up. This is their current lineup. So you see they have a Mustang, an Escape, Bronco Sport, Bronco, Explorer, Edge, Mustang Mach-E, Expedition, and in the trucks we got the all-new Maverick. You got the Ranger that's supposed to come out soon, the F-150, and then you got your Super Duties and your F-150 Lightnings. Now, out of all those, you know, obviously Super Duty, I would never take that away. That's their bread and butter. F-150, why would you ever take that? That's their sales volume. So we know pretty much truck lineup is pretty safe. Now, F-150 Lightning, you know, when Tesla came out with the Cybertruck and was like, hey, we're going to do it for this price, Ford was like, hold my beer. I think we can build it, still make it pretty much similar to the normal F-150 series, and keep the customers happy. And I've often said with F-150 Lightning, it was pretty smart on their ability to kind of tailor it to the same truck as they had with the normal F-150. So you don't scare your client base. There's an older generation that might tiptoe into EV, but let's go in quietly. Let's not in just smash their, like the Cybertruck, or like what maybe General Motors have done with their Silverado EVs, or what I like to call the Avalanche. But I think over in the SUV car category is we could remove one of these and probably nobody would really be upset about it. Now, I will say they are selling some of this vehicle, so don't get me wrong. And these are just my opinions once again. So what I think they could remove might not be what you think. And you may be the owner of this vehicle. Like, Dave, you're crazy. It's an amazing vehicle. When I look at their lineup currently here, we got Mustang. You know, Mustang's not going away. That's a heritage vehicle. Now, while it's not the sales volume car it used to be, a lot of heritage with that car. And as an owner of a Mustang, I think they're pretty fun. You got the Escape right there, which is kind of their entry-level crossover SUV for $29,000. You get into the Bronco Sport, which is relatively the same size of the vehicle for $31,000, but you're kind of getting that more rugged Bronco heritage name to that. Bronco, obviously, they just brought Bronco back. It's been a big volume mover for them. They are not doing away with that. Explorer, I think down the road, I think Explorer could go away because I would like to see Ford bring in something from a different market. Done a video on this. Maybe take that place, but you got the Edge there for $38,000. So you're starting to move up in price, and you got Expedition there for $55,000, that's their family mover, man. That's if you got a little bit of money, got 8 kids, whatever the thing holds, and you're wanting to go to grandma's house, you take that vehicle, it's comfortable for everybody, and you move on. But that leaves me with the Mustang Mach-E. Why I think Mustang Mach-E could go away is I think it was named wrong, honestly. I think it's a very nice vehicle, and I think it's good for Ford to jump into this level of EV. You only have to look at Tesla. Look at where Tesla's volume is, and I believe it's the Model Y is Tesla's mover, same size as the Y, maybe just a hair longer, you know, a little bit bigger, but it's in that category. They upset a lot of people when they brought in the Mustang Mach-E name. You know, the Mach name has always been like the Mach 1s from the 70s. That was a heritage to Mustang, so it made sense to do that. But calling it a Mach-E, I just think was a little bit disrespectful to the Mustang name, and it's kind of pitted old school Mustang people against kind of the new school EV Mustang people. And I think you only have to look at the lineup to see where they could have taken the name. You could have called it just the Mach-E. I think it would have lent itself to heritage of the Mustang without putting the Mustang badging on it. And you could have tailored it somewhat to Mustang. You know, obviously the taillights of this car look very similar to what Mustang looks like. The front end of it is similar, but it's kind of in line with their normal design stylings. Had they just brought this vehicle in, I think you could have called it the Edge. You could have done away with Edge, and you could have been like the Edge E or something like that. That lends itself to more of a futuristic name. to kind of say, hey, this is where the focus of the company's going in the next 50 years. But using the Mustang Mach-E, it just pitted, it hurt my soul a little bit. And out of all of these in their lineup, they're one of their weaker sellers. So I think if Ford were to take a look at now, obviously this is my opinion, but if they take a look at where they're selling vehicles, I think obviously we know one of these in this lineup's going away already. I think Mustang Mach-E, you get rid of it, you bring it back as some other name, maybe just slightly, maybe you can go a little sporty styling with it. It's still a fun looking car. Just let's do away with the Mustang taillights. Let's give it a little bit of its own look, and then we work with what we got. So in the comments below, if you're a Ford fan, what do you think of that one? Next up, we're going to take a look at the Honda brand. And the Honda brand's a tough one for me to find one vehicle to really get rid of, because Honda is so efficient at what they do. Now, they're a multi-vehicle kind of brand, so they do motorcycles, motorsports, stuff like that. I think that's caused them to be lean and mean. So this is the one brand out of probably the whole list that I've chose today that it's been difficult for me to look at their lineup and do away with one, because you have the classics, and let's pull this up and I'll show you a little bit. But so you have the classics. There's the the CRV, the Pilot, the Passport for their SUVs. You got the Civic and the Accord. The Civic Accord been with the brands forever, and then they've done some sportier versions of that. But then the Odyssey for the minivans, it sells well. That's a good minivan. And Ridgeline, whether you like it or not, Ridgeline has actually done pretty well for the company. So when I look overall, it's a tough one. And with EV coming around and Honda seemingly slow to want to adapt to EVs, they've been questioned many times of why do you not have a build partner? A lot of manufacturers, you look at Toyota and Subaru, they build vehicles together. Toyota and BMW doing the Supra together, and GM has done it in the past where they partnered with Toyota and other brands to kind of, when you have two vehicles built on the same platform, it's just cheaper for both parties. But Honda is taken to this, we're going to be our own little people, kind of much like Nissan has done. They develop their own stuff, or they try to, and they don't really worry too much about partnerships. Of course, with Nissan, they have Renault and now Mitsubishi they can kind of lean on. Honda's still that outlier. They really only do things in-house, and they do them well. It's quality vehicles, and they're gonna last forever. But when you look through this list, the HRV, the CRV, the Pilot, there's price points, much like GM, but they start around $24,000 and move on up. And then you can get into the SI sedans, the $29,000. If you want the Type R, you're $44,000, $50,000, $55,000, $60,000 in that range for that. If you want the ultimate little Honda sports car, or sports sedan, I should say. And so when I look at this list, this is a tough one, and this is a quick one for me. And I'm just going to have to start where they start out at, with the HRV. Why I say that is it's small. Civic has, it's built around that style of vehicle, just in more of an SUV style, more of a crossover style. I feel like Honda's bread and butter has been their cars. And of course, we've talked about it here now. Everybody's kind of doing away with cars, so it kind of makes sense for them. But if I had to do away with one, I can't do away with the Civic. It's too iconic for the brand. Accord's kind of the same way. It's just too iconic for the brand. And you look at Pilot, Passport, those two, they just sell extremely well for the brand. So if I'm going to have to pull one away from old Honda, it's sadly going to be the HRV, and not much to reasons why. It's just their entry-level vehicle. I think of Honda more of a premium brand. If I'm going to think of the very entry level, I'm probably like a Kia, something like that, maybe a Nissan Sentra. And I like the brand kind of being in that middle. Hey, we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive. We play in that middle ground where everybody's at. So for there, we're going to have to lose the HRV. In the comments below, Honda guys, I don't hear a lot from Honda people. Even the customers seem to be very just quiet. Like, they just love their vehicles and they don't talk much about them. Where are you at with this? Which one would you lose if you had to lose one Honda in this lineup right now? And I'm not talking about getting into the high end cars, because I'm talking more of the daily. Here's what they sell normally. Where would you go with that? So in the comments below, let me know what you think. So the Nissan brand, I've been a fan. I won't say a fanboy of the brand, but I've loved this brand. For one, I live in Middle Tennessee, so they've done a lot for my area. But two, I kind of like an underdog, and Nissan's always kind of been the underdog. If you look, when they came into the 60s, 70s, they had the 240Zs, the 280Zs, and the Z kind of made their name here in America. And then they brought in the little pickup trucks, and everybody loved that. And the hard bodies, and they sold 200 plus thousand of those little trucks a year. And they had the idea, and what just poor management, and then the takeovers from the French, and it's just kind of made a mess of this company. I feel like it's made a mess of their lineup, but they're slowly weeding out the bad and bringing in the good. So let's look at this company. And they've already started to thin the herd. As I record this, they're already removing vehicles from this. So let's go to, I want to talk about this real quick. So Maxima is gone. They've quit making Maxima. They haven't built that vehicle at the Smyrna plant here since last summer. So by this 23 year, it's gone. Altima is going away. These were their bread and butter cars all through the 2000s. Altima, man, just blew sales away. And as people's taste in vehicles changed, nobody wants a 2 or 4-door sedan anymore. They want SUVs. It's required companies like Nissan to have to take a hard look at themselves. And like I said earlier, Ford did away with cars a long time ago. And for a while, even I think it was the Ford GM execs that said, hey, let's let Toyota and Nissan, the import brands, have that market. Now, while, I say they're import brands, they build a lot of their vehicles here in the United States, which I commend them for. I think that's amazing. Sadly, we're already losing Maxima and the Altima now. So I can take a look at their sports cars. They just brought the Z out. So Z is here to stay for a while. And I think it's been a home run for the brand. It's pretty low hanging fruit. Didn't cost a ton for that to be developed, which is one of Nissan's problems is they're always cash strapped. So they never have enough money to fully go in on a new platform. But the Z it's still a fun car. It's a fairly affordable car. GTR is kind of their halo car. Obviously, this thing's well past its prime. We know that they've pump the prices up on this thing because they really don't want to sell many of them. If you want one, you can get one. This GTR, I think it needs to go back to just being called a Skyline GTR. I think let's play on our heritage. And of course, old Carlos Ghosn, who was the former CEO of the company, just said, no, it just needs to be GTR. I think the fanboys of now that we have all the Skyline GTRs being able to be imported into America, seems like makes sense to just go back to calling these Skyline GTRs. We do have the GTR. That car is not going anywhere, though we do know that they are working on some sort of hybrid / EV version of this thing for the next generation. That car could be put out to the pasture for a while, but still not going anywhere. Back to the cars. Sentra, they sell a ton of Sentras, whether it be into the rental markets or whatever, that. And ultimately, don't be wrong, they do sell quite a bit of that. Trucks wise, Frontier is their bread and butter of trucks. We do know that the lineup for their trucks is about to already be thin because, well, I've reported on this many times, and if they finally came out and said this, by 2024, the Titan is no more. They could just never make this vehicle get into it. It requires a lot of money to push into this market. Like I said earlier, Nissan doesn't have a lot of money to just throw at one particular vehicle. They got to spread out their money all through their PR has to be all through their lineups. So they've never been able to do like what Ford may have is just a truck division, or like Chevrolet and some of the big boys is we have a truck division. We can't remove Titan because they're already doing this. So that's already 3 vehicles that they're already taking out of the lineup that I don't have to do for them. So that leaves one thing. We got to go to the SUVs. And as you can see, they don't have as many out there as like General Motors had with the Chevrolet brand. Well, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, what's there, 6 there? And they seem to be very efficient with sizing wise. Rogue is an entry level. Aria, they just brought out as an EV, though Aria sales aren't where they should be. But that means they're not going to give up on Aria just yet because, well, we're early into this EV market. And I've tested Aria. We've done, it's been on the channel twice. And I think it's a fine vehicle, a little pricey, but that's all EV. Kicks is a pretty popular entry-level crossover for them, so I don't see it going away anytime soon, though I do miss the Juke. I was a Juke fanboy. I did own one of those. Murano is due to be redesigned. Well, I know it's already been redesigned. They're starting the trials right now, and we will see a new 24 Murano here very soon. Pathfinder is, well, there's the heritage name. They can't get rid of that heritage name because that's Pathfinder's what kind of made the whole 4-door SUV market come to life. Between that and 4Runner, when the import brands of those two did that, that's what brought them to life. And in the 80s, and forced General Motors and Ford and everybody to have to adopt the 4-door platform, which is now kind of the standard. So the Pathfinder name is not going anywhere, even though I would like to see them get back to the roots of that vehicle and maybe do that or an Xterra. That's a whole nother show. And then we have Armada, and Armada is a head scratcher to me. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's the one I would do away with. with. They do not sell a ton of it. It's probably not their weakest vehicle out there. I would say probably Aria is, but once again, Aria is not going out there because it's new tech they're trying to push. But Armada is a head scratcher to me because had they brought out the Patrol, which is what all the rest of basically the globe gets, and we get it called the Armada, we get a weaker version of it that's not as capable. In this size of vehicle, I'll be honest, I think Nissan needs to do what Toyota has done with their Land Cruiser. Let's go smaller. Let's bring it back to its roots just a little bit. These things have gotten to be luxury kind of pigs. And I think that's the Armada's problem is now it just got a refresh. And rumors have it that late 24, 25, we will see a new design of the Armada. I just don't feel like it with the Titan going away. We could chop off all the bigger vehicles and let's just get back and doing what we do best. Small vehicles that are efficient and we go from there. So what do you think with the Nissan brand? Is that where you would go? Is that where you would remove because it's expensive? And they just don't sell very well. Next up, we're going to talk about the new kid on the block, which is Tesla. And love them or hate them, they have pushed the industry faster than the industry thought they could go. And for good reasons, man. They brought in a new way to do it. Tesla is a car company in name. They're really a technology company, and they just like to push and make things. You say they can't do it, they're like, we will do this, much like the Cybertruck. Now, we'll look at their lineup right here. But the Cybertruck, they were like, hey, they say it can't be done. We're going to do it. And if you read all the reports, and there's a bunch of good videos out there. Haggerty's done a great video on this vehicle. The time frame they had to do this, and I know it took 4 years to develop to get all the way to market, but if you knew how short a time Elon gave his team to do it, you'd be pretty impressed by it. And like Cybertruck, it's too new. We can't take this out of the market just yet because we don't know, is the audience they're going to like it or not. And I think the Cybertruck, the way they push technology in that, completely drive by wire. I know Infinity's toyed with that a little bit. Tesla just did it. And it's all for good reason. If EV, you need less parts. So you need all these things too, less wiring, they're heavy. So you need them to be efficient as possible. So we can't pull Cybertruck out of there just yet because I think it's the tech of it's just too new. Let's see how, obviously it's polarizing. Either you like it or you hate it. There is no in between, but let's see how the market does on that. So let's look at the rest of their lineup. So they have the Model S out there, which is obviously they do the sports car. That was kind of their come to market thing. They didn't sell a ton of them, but they did bring it to market. Model S is proof to concept. Like they were able to make a vehicle. It's a good looking design. They push the envelope for auto design. It's clean. The dash, all you have to do is look at the dash and the way they were doing their instrument clusters, all through the center stack, really push the industry to want to go into bigger center stacks because at the time people were still using dial radios. Now they were digital, but it was still old tech, and Tesla made it look so futuristic. It forced the industry to have to adapt to this, and for good reasons. We have backup cameras now. A lot of safety tech came from that. Having a big screen up there, just it's nicer. It really is. So when you're backing up, you don't hurt anybody, or you can see what's behind you a lot clearer. Now, then they went into the Model 3, which was supposed to be their affordable, small car, and it is somewhat affordable. I won't pick on it too bad. It was their bread and butter for a long time. Like they sold a lot of that vehicle and still do, and it's they just refreshed it a little bit, and I think it looks great. We got the Model X there, which it's so futuristic looking. It's crazy the way the doors do. Then you've got their Model Y, which is supposed to be an SUV. I say that in quotes because if you look across there, they all look very similar design because it's about aerodynamics and you want to make these things as smooth as possible. But Model Y, man, they sell a ton of that. I believe it's for the brand. I believe it's their most popular out of all of them. And then we get back to Cybertruck, and we do have a new coupe coming down the road. Whether we see that or not, who knows? Model X is going to have to disappear, and Elon has said it himself. It's the most difficult thing they do. The doors of this thing. Let's bring this up here. See the doors, the way they open up there. That was for manufacturing. That has just been a nightmare for the company, and it's expensive. And I think those doors make it look starting out at $68,000. And that is ridiculous when you think about pricing these things. So in the comments below, let me know what you think. Is that part of where you would go? I think Tesla themselves would just remove that Model X. So let me know. Next up is the Chevrolet brand, and the GM brand was my family's household brand. That was my dad always loved to drive General Motors products from his old '76 Silverado that till it rusted and fell apart. Like he drove that thing till it died. Put probably 2 motors in that thing, few transmissions in, but he just loved that old pickup truck. And they have a lot of heritage. Obviously, we have Vet, and Vet's not ever going away. They've just been talks of making it its own boutique brand, much like seems what General Motors likes to do with their brands now. Let Chevrolet Chevrolet be the heart and soul of the company with their trucks and their SUV lineups. And then let's take Buick and a few others and just sort of, they can be their own small things, but we all know Chevrolet is the heart of the company. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. So we'll bring up Chevrolet's lineup here. And as you can see, they have quite a few. And we're going to start with the cars. They still make a Malibu where Ford, when Ford said, I believe in 17, they were doing away with the cars. Chevrolet, for some reason, do not let the Malibu go, and I don't know if it's because it's patrol car or something like that. I'm sure there's some sort of fleet management vehicle need for that vehicle, so I think that's why they keep that around. We're going to get into the heart and soul of the vehicle. So you have the Bolt EV, the Bolt EUV, you have the Trax, the Trailblazer, Equinox, the Equinox EV, Blazer, and Blazer EV. You do have in the truck lineups, you do pretty thin. You know, they're pretty lean and mean in their truck categories. Mid-size truck, the 1500s, we can go the heavy duties, and maybe one day we'll actually see the Silverado EV, which I had a reservation on and finally got rid of it because the company never gave me any updates on it. Now, well, I do not think CEO has been very clear they're going to be an EV company they still are holding to these target dates of 2030. Not sure how that happens, since how they can't seem to get EV products out to customers, but that's a whole nother story. But I want to look at their SUV lineup because this is where they just are flooding them. It's like they're competing against themselves, and I don't understand it for the brand. I mean, obviously the Bolt is an SUV. It's really not. It's a crossover. And there's a target audience for that, and that's where they're playing into the entry level EV market. So I'm not going to touch that. But if you look at basically Trax on down, they're all like weird price points. They're all about $3,000 price points for some reason, and it's odd to me. You look at all these vehicles for General Motors, and they all look the same. Where the previous brand we looked at, Ford, they still, whether it be the vehicle I picked on with the Mach-E, they still are somewhat unique looking in their own segment. Where Chevrolet has this weird fetish of like, everything's got to look the same. And I don't know why that is. Maybe they've seen something in their sales numbers that reflects like, hey, people like this. We're going to double down. We're just going to keep spoon feeding people what they want. Or if it's just, it's a design issue. And I can't believe it would be a design issue because, they're one of the largest manufacturers in the world. So they get the creme de la creme of auto designers. And while I'm picking on design, I think the Chevrolet look is a good look. Don't get me wrong. I really do. The Colorado, I still say the Colorado and the GMC Canyon, probably the favorite looking as design wise vehicles out there. Now, the way they perform it's a whole nother story. I want to look at the vehicle I want to kind of maybe get rid of would be Trailblazer. This one right here. $23,000 entry into that. And you've got the Trax, which is similar in size for $20,000. And it's confusing to me. I know you're just getting slightly better, in opinions, looks, kind of get some two-tone stuff. It's a Trailblazer, so it's off-road friendly-ish is what they would say. Chevrolet needs to jump in, much like Ford has and what Toyota does. They all have somewhat of a heavy-duty off-road vehicle. Chevrolet's always been in confusion, man. I've never understood their philosophy of like, when they brought the Blazer name back, people have been so upset about that. And the Blazer is selling okay for the brand, but I have a feeling had they made the Blazer something, doesn't have to be a full inline with Bronco or Jeep Wrangler. If they would have just somewhat competed with it, people would have loved that. Much like what they did with the ZR2 and the Silverado. It's not a full Raptor killer. It's never going to take on the TRX, but at least they're acknowledging, hey, we needed something somewhat in that market. So for all that, Trailblazer just doesn't make sense to me because you look at the Trax, like I said earlier, similar size, the Equinox. It's that $3,000 jump. And I think if you went from Trax at $20,000 entry level into 26 with the Equinox, I don't think people miss this segment at all. Now, remember, I'm not looking at sales figures of this. I'm just looking at where the lineup stacks, in my opinion, from design and what they're showing us offering. So that's kind of how I'm coming to the conclusion of this. But Equinox EV, obviously, that's upcoming. That's not going anywhere. And the Blazer is their larger vehicle. Down here, you got a Traverse. You got the Tahoe, the new Tahoes. All these Tahoe and Suburban are not going anywhere because those are money makers for the brand. So as you can see here, we got the new Tahoe and the new Suburban coming out. So those two are safe. And Traverse is, you want something capable, a large family mover. That's $34,000. The price point of that is pretty nice, especially if you look at Traverse versus Blazer EV. There's no way I would jump into that vehicle. You're getting more vehicle with the Traverse for price. But back to this, I think Trailblazer for the brand. And I honestly, this was the one brand that I struggle with. I could probably remove 3 of these and it wouldn't hurt their sales at all. Now, employment wise, I don't know as far as manufacturing what that would do to the company, but I think out of all these, Chevrolet was the hardest one to remove just one vehicle. So I want your opinions. Which one of these would you remove? Are you a GM person? Are you Chevrolet hardcore? And you're like, man, if I had to remove one, this would be a tough one for me. So in the comments below, let me know what you think. Next up is the Toyota brand, and this is a brand that they're pretty conservative. So anytime Toyota does something, they're pretty on spot with where the rest of the market is. So they don't tend to take too many chances. That doesn't mean they don't have something out there that I can snip away, right? So let's get into this. Let's show their brand up here. Pop it up. And as you can see, this is just cars. They have a pretty stacked lineup, even when it comes to cars. You see the 2024 Toyota Crown, of course, the Priuses. Those aren't going anywhere. The GR Corolla, that would be years from going away. They'll milk that one as long as they can. Normal Corolla, that's the heartbeat of the company. That's not going anywhere. I do love their hatchbacks, just the normal Corolla hatchbacks for $23,000. That's a fun looking car. Camry, even though Nissan is doing away with cars, Toyota seems to be. They're going to be like the last holdout of the car market. And the Mira, that's a fuel cell thing we can't really talk about. The GR86, the Supra's got a lot of heritage. I can't imagine they would do away with that. Real quick, even though I do feel like maybe by 25 it's due for a refresh. And the Sienna. Now in the truck lineup, we can see there the Tacoma. They just brought this thing out, so there's no way we can clip those balls, right? No, we can't, because they sell like 200 plus thousand of those things a year. It's ridiculous. Tundra out of the two, if you just had to compare to the trucks, yeah, Tundra would be a no-brainer, but they actually sell quite a bit of Tundra. I mean, not to the levels that the big two sell, Ford and Chevrolet, but they actually do sell quite a few of it, and it's why Nissan could never really get into the truck markets, because Toyota was scavenging up all those extra sales and left Nissan out to the cold. But then we go over to crossovers, and man, they with some of the other brands I've said, like especially Chevrolet, they got so many out there, but Toyota is like, hey, let's triple the amount of we're going to flood the market with everything. But like I said earlier, when they get into a market, they have a pretty good reason, and they're very scientific about their approach to that. As you can see, they got the Highlander, and if you need a Highlander, they got 16 different versions of it. Highlander, Grand Highlander Hybrid. We got the Sequoia, the RAV4, the RAV4 Hybrid, the RAV4 Prime. Not sure why we need 3 different versions of that, but they seem to sell. Corolla Cross, the Corolla Cross Hybrid, the 4Runner, which is aging itself out of there, right? Because we knew we have the Land Cruisers coming back. So that's going to kind of fill, from what I've seen of it, I haven't yet to see the Land Cruiser in person, but from what I've seen of it, it seems to be fairly the same size. So I'm curious what Toyota might do with the 4Runner. Do they scale it back down just a little bit? Because it was getting to be a little bit getting big for where it needed to be. And $40,000 entry level, do they knock that one down to maybe a $35,000? Let the Land Cruiser take that $50,000 category and price this in there, because if you look at the way they stack their lineup, man, it's very price specific. And then you go to the electrified, which is just a bunch of versions of what they already have out there. So there's not a lot to deal with here. But out of all of them, I mean, crossovers, you go, okay, maybe the Corolla Cross, but the sales figures aren't too bad for that. There's a certain segment, I think there's a generational segment for that vehicle that doesn't want their cars too futuristic looking. So then we go to trucks. Obviously, nothing about these trucks are disappearing, which is that's a good thing for Toyota. That means they're doing something right. And then we move into the car segment, which car segments for me are pretty easy to trim. There's not a lot of manufacturers making cars. Like I said a little bit ago, Nissan is losing the Altima and Maxima out of its lineup, which just leaves it with the Versa and the Sentra. So that's kind of bare bones for car sales, which those are definitely rental fleet car sales probably. And we look at this, and even though Toyota is not really known for rental fleets, they have, so there's some volume vehicles there, like Camry and Corolla are definitely volume vehicles, but I think those are heritage names that you can't really clip those. Though I do see a point down the road where the Corolla, there's been some teasing of maybe calling a new SUV like the Corolla, the one we just talked about, but moving that into more of an SUV category and losing the badge for the cars. It's just speculation at this point. The Supra, I don't feel like it's going anywhere. So that leaves me one vehicle, and there's probably within Toyota, I could probably trim a few of these out and be okay. But we're only picking one today, and that is the GR86. That's right. While this thing is, it's a fun little vehicle, and in a world where we're losing kind of shifty vehicles, manual transmissions, this one still offers a manual transmission, and it's fun. But had it not been for the partnership with Subaru, this thing probably wouldn't be here, because, They have that where they both sharing the line space for the build this vehicle, and it makes it more affordable anyways for them to build this. But that starting price of $28,000 is looking pretty expensive for really what you get. If you consider, you can move into some more sporty vehicles, a lot more horsepower, even the Supra, you can get something, yeah, not in the close to the $28,000 range, but you're getting a lot more power. So that leaves the GR kind of in a weird category because, as it says here, 228 horsepower. You can bump these things. You can get a lot nicer vehicles up to $34,000. The fuel economy of this makes it kind of fun to keep around, but it's really kind of a low horsepower vehicle. That's just it's. I guess on the back roads it would be fun to keep around, but for the Toyota brand, I don't know where the GR86 is doing anything for them because this poor car has went through some name changes. Obviously, there was the whole Scion thing where they were trying to do some stuff, didn't necessarily work out. They try to take this car and make it into the Toyota lineup. I think the GR name on this thing is kind of confusing, and Toyota's been hinting about this vehicle. They've been hinting that something's coming, and that is the Celica. They've had no reason to talk Celica, and they've suddenly have started talking it. You'll see it in the little advertisements in the background. You'll see the Celica name. And what I have a feeling is that they may clip this car. Really, this is a Celica. If you look at it over the past, 30, 40 years of what Celica really turned into, obviously it hadn't been around in many years, but it was a natural progression that this is kind of the territory that Celica boasted. This was where the price tag was for it. And I remember those old GTSs. I love that Celica, the early 90s. Man, those were a lot of fun. Hot hatch. It was really cool. I love the way they did the hatch of this thing, and you could get in the back. You could get a lot of room out of this. And it always kind of remind me of Nissan with the 240s. They kind of, it just wasn't as cool as the 240s at the time, but do they clip this one and bring a Celica in and give it a little balls? I would be curious, but if I had to remove one vehicle out of the lineup that makes sense to me, this would be the one, unfortunately. And it's not because I hate the car, because I do love the car. It's just when I look at this from my journalist standpoint, it's really not adding much to the company. For one, I think the name is just awful. I really do. I think that name is just awful and confusing when in a brand of Corollas, Tundras, a GR86. It's kind of confusing. So in the comments below, where are you at with this? Would you clip this one, or which one would you clip out of these cars? Toyota's got to lose one. Which one would it be? Next up is a trio of brands called Dodge, Ram, and Chrysler. Now, this company, their truck lineup has really kept this company afloat. And then you add basically Jeep, which I'm not going to bring Jeep into this because basically right now there's nothing Jeep does that is bad. That is what's keeping really between this and Ram is keeping this company afloat. But I want to kind of go over this brand a little bit and see where can we trim some fat from this company. Now, Dodge, we do know that the Dodge brand, we got a Charger, a Challenger, the Durango, and the Hornet. Now, it's a very confusing lineup. They used to offer a lot more vehicles, and they've kind of thinned it down. The Challenger Charger, we do know, are going to be converted into EVs slash, they've kind of backpedaled a little bit about this over the past year of like, oh, no, we're going to have gasoline powered versions too. So the fanboys can rest easy, even though we do know it will be a straight six engine in that. I still think it's going to be a very capable engine because I've driven the Hurricane engine in their bigger platforms, and it will get up and go. So I think the car people are going to be very happy about that. Though we'll never have the appeal of the big V8, the big rumbles of the V8. I think it's very cool. So we have that, and they brought out the Hornet last year, and that's their little economy SUV kind of crossover. The Durango, we just did a video on the SRT version of it. It's so much fun, but it's kind of expensive and kind of dated a little bit. The Challenger Charger, we know that platform's been dated. That's like 2 purchases ago of the brand. That's still on some of the Mercedes-Benz tech that they're using there. And then I want to look at the Ram Trucks brands, and obviously Ram Trucks, they're not going anywhere. This lineup stacked head to toe. We do know they have the new EV coming out, the Revolution. That's going to be their future, but their bread and butter is these trucks right here, the 1500 to the TRX, which I love, which we were all worried, oh, it's the last of the TRX. And then we come to find out, no, it's just the last of the V8. They're bringing the Hurricane engine into that. So that's going to be kind of fun still. The 1500 to the 2500s, these trucks, from the 80s when they couldn't basically give these trucks away to the turnaround that they did in 93 when they brought out the new design. or 92, one of the two, just kind of transformed this company. Now, why they've always been kind of in debt a little bit, and they've had to really scrape to get by. They've had a few people buy the companies, sell the companies. They basically get robbed of their tech, and then they sell them off to somebody else. Well, I think they're in kind of more of stable hands now, as wrapped up in Stellantis. I still think that there's some fat that can be trimmed there, and I only have to look at right here, the whole brand. Chrysler is obviously it's kind of there's a lot of pizzazz about the brand name. It's been around forever. It kind of what was part of the merger of all these companies. This was the big deal. Chrysler was they always did the luxury vehicles, just very nice vehicles, and we want to look at their lineup, and that's it. The 300 we know is going away. Now, whether they bring it back on the same platform that Challenger Charger's built on, I don't know. Past that, what do they build? Some family movers of the Pacifica. And while those are nice vehicles, I don't know that it justifies having a whole brand name to present for the company. There's a lot of marketing behind that. When these brands, they have their own PR teams and all that. And it would seem to be very expensive to keep this brand around. And especially when, it's been done before. General Motors removed Pontiac, which was just a classic name brand. Obviously, Saturn brand names have went away. Look at Ford. Ford's done the same thing. They've Lincoln's been very scaled back, and of course, the brand we won't talk about, the police car brand, basically that's been gone for quite a while. So I don't see it being an issue to remove this brand and people noticing. Now, I think you can still pluck these vehicles, the Pacifica. I still think you could bring it into the Dodge. Dodge has had minivans before, though they would like to use the Dodge brand as their performance kind of lineup, or honestly, bring it into Ram. You now have a Ram Pacifica that, it's you have the lineup here for the ProMaster. So it's not like you don't make vans over there already. I think you can convert that into a Ram. Obviously you soften the logo just a little bit for that vehicle, but I think you push it over there and then there's no reason for Chrysler. So in the comments below, out of all these, I can't take away any of the trucks. So Ram's safe. Jeep is safe. There's no reason to even look at Jeep because that there's nothing they're doing other than they just did away with the little Renegade, which that's fine. But there's nothing they're doing over there right now that's been a miss. But as far as a miss, I hate to say it, I just think Chrysler as a whole could be gone. In the comments, let me know what you think. Now we're going to talk about the Hyundai Kia group, and we're going to merge these two together, and they're basically the same company. It's just a price point, slight design differences, obviously. But I want to look at Hyundai and Kia as, they are the little brands that could. They are the brands that Hyundai, when they came out in the late 80s, they were just a affordable box on wheels, basically. And over the years, they've had made their miscues, their missteps, but they finally, by the late 2000s, the 2009 era, they just started stepping up. They brought in new design teams, and they just energized the company, which that in turn jumped into Kia. And when that design team left, you thought, they're going to go right back. No, they just kept innovating and making interesting cars. So I want to bring up the Kia group first. And, the Kia, both these brands are really jumping into electric, and they seem to be doing it very smart as well. They don't just seem to, we're going to make one of our normal cars and just an EV powertrain in it. If people buy it, they do, or if they don't. But let's take a look at their vehicles here, because they have a pretty nice lineup. Now, this is their their SUVs, CUVs, and MPVs, as I like to call them. And there's the Soul, which starts around $19,900 for Kia brand. And that's their very entry level. It's their kind of box on wheels that's affordable. You get some fun things about it. They've really branded the Soul as a fun, youthful vehicle. And then you move up to the Stelios, the Sportage, the Sorento, the Carnival MPV, and the Telluride. And well, the Telluride, man, that has been a money maker for this brand. The Telluride has really in a tight field, like that bigger SUV field. That's a hard field to make waves in. And I feel like they've really done that. In many cases, the Telluride gets more attention than the Hyundai version of the same vehicle. But as you can see here, they're bringing in the hybrid and the electrics, and you've got the Nero hybrid, the Sportage hybrid, the Nero plug-in. And I'm not big on plug-in hybrids right now till we get some more range out of them. I think it's just to get tax credits and make vehicles cheaper. And then these companies get a lot of carbon credits for them as well. But you basically their whole lineup, and then you have the EV6 down here, which the EV6, I've done time in that vehicle, and that is a fun one. I would do the GT inline version of that. Man, bam, go. That thing is fun. It's fast, and all the cool color options. Kind of reminds me a little bit of, you can't see it in here, but there's a little bit of lime, with the wheel wells. It just sort of gives me Lamborghini vibes. I know that sounds crazy, but that's where my brain goes. And they're really pushing to get into the EV more and take charge. You got this EV9 coming up. They've got little sedans, the Rio 5 door, the Forte, the K5. But I really feel like this brand's bread and butter is up here in the uh the crossovers. I think that's really where they do well. And Kelly loves the Carnival MPV. We've done some time with that vehicle, and it is a fun vehicle, and you get a lot of options with that vehicle. So it's tough to just lose one of these, because ideally you go, okay, the Soul, it's entry level. Generally with brands like this, you don't make a ton of money with an entry level vehicle. I don't know if that's where I go. Where would you go in this list? Would you look at that, or do you is there another one out there that you're like, it's okay, but I had to look at my list on this, and because this is a tough one for me, much like a few of the other brands. Some of these the foreign brands seem to are lean and mean, so they seem to have a point. They don't just throw a bunch of vehicles out and hope they all sell. They're very specific when they bring it to the market. But I'm gonna have to look at their the car segment and the Rio in general. $16,000, very entry level vehicle. If there's a certain buyer for this vehicle, there's a new customer for the brand in that vehicle. But it just, I don't know, something about it, it's cheapening the brands a little bit, that price point. And when you think about, you look at a lineup, if I go to any of these manufacturers and they had a $5,000 car right now, I'd be like, man, that's probably an awful car. And that's kind of what I've always felt about the Rio. Now, it's probably an amazing car. I've never done time in the Rio, sadly. But if I have to choose through their whole stacked lineup, it can't be the K5, it can't be the Forte. I'm going to have to knock out one of their entry levels. But what do I do with Hyundai? So let's take a look at Hyundai. All right, with Hyundai, you look at the brand and you're like, this is their middle ground vehicles. This is their bread and butter as a company. And it's kind of what they started out as. And they've slowly over time went from just being just a cheap vehicle that anybody could probably qualify for, to now they're pushing themselves into that middle tier. Like, we build quality vehicles. We want to be thought of as, hey, we're for real. We're not just an entry level vehicle company now. We have Kia for that if we need them to be that. Even though I do feel like Kia's designs have really stepped up. Hyundai over the past 10 years, man, has just really elevated the brand into another segment, and it makes it tough for me to want to get rid of one of their vehicles. So here's their electrified lineup. As you can see here, they kind of take everything they make now and just sort of make a electrified version of it, or they do have a fuel cell version. SUV wise, let's see, they've got a pretty stacked lineup here, being the Palisade, which is much like the Telluride. That's where Hyundai's really come in. They weren't really known for SUVs, and over the years they've just sort of elevated their SUVs into something super nice. That Palisade is very nice. The Santa Fe is really nice. You can get electric version of this. The Santa Cruz, which is doing well for the brand, and it's kind of a quirky thing. When we first saw this thing, I believe it was in like 18 at one of the auto shows, it was people were like, what are they doing? They're trying to make like the old El Caminos. They took it as a joke. But then once they started building this, and then Ford came out with their Maverick, that's now a stable segment, and all the other brands need to be playing catch up, because they're going to let the Hyundai Santa Cruz and the Ford Maverick just own the segment. And I like the fact that each of the two, being a unibody chassis pickup ish truck, completely different buyer for that category, as we'll say. But going through here, like, you look at their price point, the Venue is around 19,000 for their SUVs, and what's their little sedans? So the Ioniq 6, look, they're not doing too much in their the entry level as far as their cars, which is nice. Like I said, they're stepping it, they're elevating up. And then with their in performance series, man, it's fun that they're taking small cars like this and just cranking out some horsepowers. And I love that. I really do. I love that. And they've always done some fun things. But if I have to look right now at the brand, I'm going to have to take a look at the Iconic 6. And you're probably just saying, Dave, that thing just came out. And so let's pull over here, and I'll pull it up actually. Um, I don't understand this vehicle for the brand. It's completely different design. Obviously, it's fully EV. It's going to get nice, like 332 horsepower, estimated 600 or 361 miles of range. But I don't understand. It's not as in the design queue as everything else they've been building. Now, maybe this is leading where the company's going to go, even though we've seen some of their newer products come out since this that would say otherwise. This particular one, I just don't find it to be an attractive vehicle. And remember, these are just my opinions, by the way. I just feel like they tried to copy Porsche a little bit. They've just tried to I don't know. I'm lost at where this was. And when I saw this at Chicago Auto Show last year, I talked to Kelly about it, and I just could not wrap my head around this particular vehicle, because pricing is just okay. And the front end of this thing, I don't know. It just doesn't fit to me where they're going, or where the brand's design cues are at. Now, once again, you look at their range and stuff, and it's pretty, especially when you compare it to Tesla, it's definitely a nice vehicle for that and all the tech and stuff you get to it. But for me personally, it's just not out of anything I would purchase from Hyundai. This would be last on my list. I don't care how well it is. It's just the looks of it to me just kill it. So that means I'm going to have to lose the Ioniq 6. And well, that's sad because I imagine it's a very good vehicle and maybe I'll get some press time in it. Maybe next year. So I do another one of these and I add it back to the list because I like it the way it handles and drives. So in the comments below, let me know what you think about where would you lose with the Hyundai brand? If you had to pick just one, would it be this one? Would it be something else? In the comments below, let me know. Remember, at the end of the day, I'm just an auto journalist and these are my opinions and it's how I see the market, how I see the market shifting over the past 10 years that I've done this. And it's just, I'm a guy in a hat, my opinion. So in the comments below, let me know what you think of it. So whether it be two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, or all these cars, I would just love. I just love cars and trucks, man. I'd drive them all. This has been your All Terrain Nation. I'm your host, David Boyd, and we're out. Peace, everybody. Love y'all.